Hi, my name is Jorge Torres, co-founder and CEO at MindsDB, and I'm here to present to you machine learning in MariaDB. We're going to cover the agenda first. We're going to talk about why bringing machine learning to databases, why we think that is important, and we're going to introduce a concept called AI tables and how we implement it in MariaDB, as well as walk you through a demo. So the first thing that we're going to walk you through is why machine learning model in databases. And anyone that has dealt with the creation of a machine learning model understands that data is the crucial ingredient to machine learning. And the reason for this is that you really need data to train your machine learning algorithm to do what it's supposed to do. Then it becomes intuitive to us to ask the question, well, why not bring machine learning as close as possible to where the data lives? And given that a lot of the structured and organized data already lives in databases, the idea came to why not just bring machine learning straight to the database itself? Like, why not? And perhaps allow people to train and use machine learning models straight from the database. So can we do this? Is this even possible? And when we were asking ourselves this question, we thought maybe we can start thinking of machine learning models as if they are tables. And let me explain this to you. Like, you can actually take a machine learning model and query it if you could. And on the query where statement, you can pass the conditions for the model to make a prediction. And then on the select, you're selecting whatever you want to predict. And if you're able to do this, to treat machine learning as models, then all of a sudden you're kind of simplifying the access to the model and the way that you're making predictions. Then the next question that we had is, how do we call this fancy tables? And the name that we came up with was AI tables for simplicity. And that's what we're going to explain to you. But if you have an AI table, still you have to train this model, or you have to create a model, train it, test it, and validate it, and expose it as an AI table. And even though a lot of people may like the idea of doing the machine learning part themselves, machine learning can be hard and requires extra expertise. And for a lot of people, this can be quite a hassle or quite a pain. And we thought that if we're really going to do this, we also have to simplify that part. So how do we simplify the model creation, testing, and training? If you think about it from the context of a database and doing machine learning with the data you have in the database, a lot of the problems can be thought as you want to predict a specific variable or column, and you want to use the information that you have in a query or in a database table to learn how to train this specific machine learning model. And then you would like to expose that trained model as an AI table. So we thought about this for a while, and we realized that perhaps a simple way to do this is to bring AutoML into the mix and use a simple insert statement that does exactly that. So you insert into a magic table called predictors, where you specify the columns that you want to learn and the data that you want to learn from, and the name of the table that you want to expose this as. And doing it actually makes it easy for anyone that knows SQL. They don't have to have any extra skills, and they can now use the power of machine learning through their normal tools that they know how to use already. So once we realized that it was possible and that these mechanics will enable you to not only use a machine learning model within a database through this concept of AI tables, but through normal SQL, you can create, test, and train and validate models and expose them, then we thought of how can we actually make this a reality. And the cool thing is that MariaDB has this Connect engine, which allows you to bring into MariaDB information that doesn't live or exist inside MariaDB. And we leverage this capacity so that we can actually expose machine learning models as tables. So when you query the model, it looks like an actual table, even though it's running on the Myzb AutoML framework. And on the other hand, you can also, once you have like the idea of what you want to predict, we expose this magic table called predictors, and you can insert it into this table, and Myzb will figure out, what it needs to do to actually create the model, test it, train it, validate it, and expose it for you. So now that we've covered how we're doing this with MariaDB, I think that the best step will be to walk you through an example. Before we start into the demo, let me walk you through the use case here. Imagine that you have a website that sells used cars in the UK, and you've been collecting data for a while about the different attributes of the cars and what you end up selling them for. And the problem that you want to solve is you want to, given the inventory that you have of cars that you haven't sold yet, what will be the best price to sell these cars for? So you have historical data. This is a perfect machine learning problem. And you want to learn from this historical data so you can get a good prediction of the right price to sell a car for, the price range that will be ideal. So in my screen, you can see on the top the configuration file for Myzb. Myzb, again, is our AutoML framework. And it's actually very simple. Once you have Myzb installed, you just have to tell it how to connect to your MariaDB server. For the sake of this example, I already have Myzb installed as well as a MariaDB server. Again, the way that we connect to MariaDB, or that we integrate into MariaDB, is by using the Connect engine. And to do this, we mimic the MySQL TCP/IP protocol so that when you connect to MindsDB, it looks like an actual MySQL or MariaDB database. And when you see the tables, you're actually looking at models. Now, once you start the MindsDB server, what it will immediately do is that it will see from the configuration if there are any databases that it should be connecting to. And what it's going to do is going to publish a table called predictors into the MariaDB database that we have here installed. And this table doesn't live in MariaDB. It's a table that lives inside MindsDB. And this is the table that we use to create new models. Again, for the sake of this example, we have a database called used cars. And in this database, we have all the information that we need to learn from. So what we're going to do is we're going to tell MyZB to create a new predictor and expose it as an AI table and what query we are going to use to learn from. Once you do this, MyZB handles the rest. So it takes the data that you have and splits it into train and test and validation sets. It analyzes the statistical properties of the table, and then it generates the best pseudo model for this and trains that model. Once the model is trained, it publishes this as an AI table as you specify it in the insert command. And then you can look at this AI table as if it was a real table inside your MariaDB instance. This is really cool because then now you can make queries to that table, but that data doesn't live anywhere. It's being generated on the fly based on the parameters that you pass in your where statements. Now, when you're making a query to an AI table, you can query the predicted value or variable that you want to predict, but you can also select other columns that we provide for you, such as the confidence interval, and an explainability feature that we have for that prediction. So you can actually understand when you can trust or not trust the actual predictions that you're getting. MyZB is clever enough to understand based on what you're asking, what information it should generate for you. But ultimately, what you have to understand here is that machine learning models can only be as good as the data that you provide for them, and they can be really good at times or not. And the key element of MyZB is to be as transparent as possible about the confidence that you have for a specific prediction, as well as to exposing information that you may find useful to your decision-making process as to whether to trust or not trust a model. And I think that the best way for us to see this through and also to walk you through the different elements that involve machine learning is that one thing is to have the predictions and to be able to create the models from the database and use them straight from queries. But the other element is you need to really understand and explore the model. So after I walk you through these examples, I'm going to also show you some of the explainability features that we have around MyZB so you can do both things that are really important in any data science problem. That you can create the model, test it, train it, validate it, do all these things, that you can actually access these models straight from the database, but also that you can trust and build some intuitions around the models. So Myzb comes with a graphical user interface called Myzbscout. You can download it from our website. We'll pass you all the links. But once you do this, you can connect to your MariaDB server. And what you can see is that once you create a specific model, it also gives you a data analysis tool about the data that you use to train the model. And essentially what here it does is that it will analyze the statistical properties of the data that you pass into the training phase. And it will give you warnings such as potential biases or potential outliers. Now, once you have a model trained, it will tell you, what is the overall accuracy of the model, as well as what information for this specific model was important, and when can you trust the model, when you shouldn't trust the model. So as you can see here, there's an area within the price ranges that you have where the model is not really that good at learning, but on the rest it is. And you should take this information into account when you're actually making a prediction. You can also kind of do some sensitivity analysis on the model from the graphical user interface. You can do this straight from SQL, but you can do it from the graphical user interface itself, so you can get extra insights about explainability. Now, I think with this, we cover kind of like the different pieces around MindsDB, and we're looking forward for you to share and try it, and also give us feedback about what you think. So very excited about this integration, very excited about what you guys are going to build with MindsDB. And please join our community, join us in GitHub, and write us and come to us if you have any other questions.